It's Beach Blast Day. We leave for the beach today.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, if you are a part of Beach Blast this year, just make some noise. Anybody out here?
Anybody here? Yeah.
It's definitely this middle crew.
Come on, guys, get pumped up. Let's go.
That's good.
So leaders, students, we need you here at 5 p.m. Be here.
5 o'clock.
The whole purpose of this. Why do we go down there?
So I was in a podcast yesterday. I was doing some stuff. We were getting ready for Beach Blast and just trying to get everything in line. And it's crazy sometimes how like all the things that you're doing and learning about or reading about all sort of sync up at the same time. So I ran across this passage in Psalms, Psalms 145, 3 and 4. And so I want to read this, and I want you to listen to the why. All of the what is all up in that hallway. It's like all the what's going to go in a trailer, and all the kids are going to arrive. But the why we do it. The why we do it is here. As great as the Lord, He is most worthy of praise. That's why we're here this morning, too, on a Sunday. No one can measure His greatness. Let each generation tell its children of your mighty acts. Let them proclaim your power. So we hope that you proclaim to your kids about His mighty acts everywhere, in the car, where you're going along the way, when you go at the dinner table, before bed. We hope that you pray and that you are teaching, or we are teaching our children. But sometimes it's important to remove them from the environment that they're always a part of, and to take them somewhere and make it a really big deal out of what Jesus did for us. And that's what we're going to do this week. Yeah. So that is how we're going to tell each generation. That's how we are passionate about it, and that's why we do the stuff and plan the routes and do all the fun stuff. I just got goosebumps talking about it. But what do we need from you?
We need prayer. Pray for our trip. Pray for our safety. Pray for the kids. Open the hearts. Pray for God to either start relationships or grow those relationships. That's really what we need, guys. So prayer.
That's it. Yep. Go Beach Blast.
Yeah.
Thanks, dude. It's a good-looking outfit, might I say. So if you're not on our app, I would strongly suggest that you do so. If you don't know about it, then it's real easy. There's a thing you take a picture of, and it pops up. So everything that we're going to announce for now until forever will be on this app. Tony has done a really great job of making sure that all that stuff is accurate and on there. And so all the stuff that I'm getting ready to talk to is going to be on the calendar portion of this app. So Beach Blast is this week. And then coming up on August 27th, we have baptisms. So there's only one service that morning. It's at 10 a.m. We need you here, and then we need you to go down to the park. We're trying to make some plans to have some like a community feel to it afterwards, maybe hanging out down at the park. But that is August 27th. We would love for you guys to put that on the calendar to be there. Also, we've had a lot of people talk about, do we do anything midweek? Well, yeah, we do for kids, but not really for adults. So starting on September 26th, that's a Tuesday, we are going to start a midweek study that will run through the fall till November the 14th, taking Halloween off. There's going to be more details about that to come, just depending upon the outpouring. If there's 8 people or 80, we'll need to kind of make some considerations there about childcare. So get on the app, sign up for that if you're interested in coming. It's going to be impactful. It follows the Francis Chan series. Paul will be leading it. We did this a couple years ago. It's awesome. So I would love it if you would sign up for that if that's something you're interested in. Again, Tuesdays in September, November. Okay? So didn't mean to throw a wet blanket on the awesome start to the service. If you guys would, everybody stand up. Hey, you don't have to touch anybody. So this is for you guys, introverts. All right, just look at somebody and say, "I'm glad that you're here." Okay?
My name is Michel. I'm the lead pastor here at the River in Forsyth, Missouri, and we'd like to take this opportunity to give you just a glimpse of who we are and what we're about. At the River, we exist to inspire and enable people to become fully devoted followers of Jesus for real and for life. The Bible tells us in Matthew 22 that when pressed by a lawyer, Jesus said the most important aspect of life is to love God and love people with all you've got. In today's fast-paced culture of isolation and division, we passionately believe that a relationship with God and with people are both so worth fighting for. Jesus is our passion, our obsession, and our motivation. Because Christ gave His all on Calvary, we give our best every day. We believe the church should be a beautiful expression of its people. We have been gifted to give, wired for work, and saved to serve. We don't just go to church, we are the church. Jesus didn't leave his followers with a religion, he left them with a mission. And our mission is to spread this Jesus movement everywhere we go and to the ends of the earth. We are the light in the darkness. If you're looking for a place to belong, a place to grow, a place to serve, please join us every Sunday at 9 and 11 a.m. Help us to inspire and enable people to become fully devoted followers of Jesus for real and for life.
Series called All In, and we've kind of set up camp, if you will, on this verse that Jesus spoke in Mark 12, verse 30. He says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength." Strength is what we're going to be spending our time today. Strength, and since we're talking about strength, have you all? I don't know if you've caught this, but there's this video out there of a professional weightlifter, and he goes around these gyms and he pranks the other weightlifters. He hides his physique under janitor clothing, and he pretends to be this naive janitor, and then he blows their minds with this ability to lift weight that they've been lifting and working out. He just grabs it like it's nothing and does it with so much ease. And so I wanted to start this morning with, check this video out. This is awesome.
Plus one, come on, up, here we go, that's 5.
It's really big. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can I try? It's possible?
You?
Yeah.
No,
Please do.
don't get yourself.
No, I'm sure, please. Can here. Okay.
Well, let's
No. It's fine for me. I have warm up. Yeah. I am warm. Can I clean?
Yeah, sure, yeah, go for it.
I look guy for YouTube doing like this. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I know. I look YouTube bloggers.
Go and try your luck. Test me in again, we let it rain. Please don't stop. Then that be poking out them jeans. I've been sparking up.
It's my favorite.
I keep the flame, heard you barking up. This the wrong tree, I got the strength. Yeah, I'm charging up. I can keep
I
up.
clean here a little bit, like this. Like this.
We came from under rugs like a Persian.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Okay. It's a real late? No, not? It's a... I like Dubai, so it's my favorite. My name is Anatoly. A little bit. It's for back. Oh, it's good exercise. It's my favorite. Yes. Just I like doing like this. Like this. Oh. Just can I clean here? I'm sorry. I'm terrible sorry.
It's awesome. It's awesome. When it comes to strength, there's also, yeah, that was good. That was funny. When it comes to strength, there's also another verse that comes to mind, isn't there? We're talking about strength. It might be the most popular verse ever. You'll see it, tattooed on somebody's bicep. You'll see it on a T-shirt. I think Tony's wearing a T-shirt today with it on there. It's this verse, Philippians 4:13. It says, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It's one of the most quoted, most printed, most tattooed verses ever. I quote it every time I walk into Walmart. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I've seen this verse, painted on the wall at the gym, and so we can look at it and go, cool, God gave us a verse for the gym. Or, we'll see this everywhere, but I wanted to show you that there's so much more to that verse than we actually see and we actually use. My question today is, what if we're missing so much when it comes to that verse? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. First of all, we have to consider who wrote that verse. It was written by a guy by the name of the Apostle Paul is who we call him. And then we have to consider where he wrote that verse. He wrote that verse when he was in prison. Now, if I'm in prison, I'm probably not going to write something like this. I'd write something like, if I'm in prison, I'm going to write like, hey, y'all, pray for me like you've never prayed for me before. Pray that I will get out of this prison. I would be praying, okay, God, you got to get me out of here. After all, the only reason I'm in here is because I was doing your work in the first place. So, God, you need to get me out of here. Like, that's what I would be praying. That's what I would be writing, but not the Apostle Paul. He's writing this verse, and he's writing to this church that he had kind of planted in Philippi, and he says, hey, I'm not sure what y'all are going through out there, but here's what I know to be true while I'm in here. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Now, if you're like me, again, you've heard this verse a squillion times, but I've noticed something recently when I was reading this verse. I've noticed some things that I want to share with you today. I've noticed things like this. I'm just going to point this out. Do you notice as you look at that verse that this verse starts with the letter I and ends with me? I, me. I, me. Now, if you're like me and you've been in the church world, you've heard people say this all the time. Bible's not about you, it's about Jesus, right? I'm guilty. I've said it too. The Bible's not about you, it's about Jesus. But in this verse, it starts with I and it ends with me. And it proves that you and I are more important to God than we even realize. Did you know that today? You are important to God. I am important to God. Right now in this room, in this very moment, God is not in love with some future version of you that hasn't come into fruition yet. God is not in love with some past version of you either. He's not in love with who maybe you thought you were in the past at one time, but I'm just not who I thought I was. I'm not there like I used to be. That's not it. God is madly and deeply in love with you right now. Who you are right now. Not in a weird kind of God is my boyfriend kind of way. That's weird. Excuse me. But God loves you like crazy right now. Right where you are, he loves you. I'm not sure. I'll be honest. I'm not sure if we can even grasp how much he loves us. Because I think sometimes in life, we kind of get on this roller coaster ride and we're like, well, God, you loved me yesterday because I was better. I did more things. I'm having a rough day, so God, your love for me is kind of down here. Do we understand that God has a straight line of love for you and I? I don't think we can grasp it. Here's why I want you to hear this today, because I think as Christians, sadly, we feel this need to somehow minimize people in order to elevate Jesus. But he doesn't need that from us. It's kind of if I'm being honest, it's kind of a dumb dichotomy that we as Christians feel that we need to use sometimes. So what do we say? We say dumb things like, well, it's not about you. Life's not about you. But Paul is saying, it is about you. And it's about me. And it's about him, the author of this verse, because he uses the word I and me. Like they're the bookends of this verse. It's about you and I, and it's about Jesus. Jesus is essential in this. I want you to notice in this verse that if you take Jesus out of this verse, it doesn't make sense. So Jesus is essential. But then the verse starts with I and it ends with me. In other words, Jesus cares about you more than you can imagine. And one of the best things that this world could get is a healthy version of you. And so at the end of the day, it's all about Jesus, but it's all about Jesus in you. You matter to God. Do you think about this? Do you even realize the miracle that you are? I mean, seriously, the miracle of you being born. Your mom and dad had to hook up at the exact precise moment for you to be here. I'm serious, no joke. It had to happen. Think about this. For some of y'all, what if your mom hadn't had that extra glass of wine? You wouldn't be here. For some of y'all, if your mom and dad hadn't met in that bar that night, you wouldn't be here. You matter to God. And if you're still not convinced that you matter to God, let me refresh you on how much you matter to God. Look at the cross. Look at the cross of Jesus. You're why he went to the cross. Why? Because you matter to God. Our family has a dog, a golden doodle named Murphy. And we love Murphy, or he'd be dead. Because Murphy is a bull in a china closet, if you've heard that before. He's always knocking something over with his tail, wagging it everywhere. You can't put anything because he knocks it over. And he's always trying to eat out of the trash, and it always gets him sick when he does. And when he gets sick, guess who has two thumbs and gets to clean it up? This guy. I have to clean up when he gets sick. Now, sometimes, if I'm not there, my wife Tennille has to clean it up. And when she has to clean it up, I always have to hear about how she gagged the whole time she was cleaning it up. She's like spraying and, it's bad. And so it proves to me, when she cleans up after him, it proves to me how much she loves our dog. And so you and I, we can look at Tennille loving our dog. We can admire her and say, wow, she must really love that dog to gag the whole time and still do it. But at the same time, those same people, the people who would look at my wife and say she'd do the things that she would go through for the love of her dog, and we would admire her for it, those same people might look at a blood-stained cross of Jesus and still doubt if God really loves them. The cross of Jesus. See, the cross was not intended for you and I to have a necklace or a cool tattoo. The cross, nothing wrong with those things, but I'm saying the cross was intended to remind you and I that we matter to God. I, me, and Jesus in the center of it all. I and me, Jesus in the center. I want you to look at this verse today. I want to kind of unpack this verse. Let's start with these first two words of this verse. I can. I can. Look at those two words. I can. I like that, don't you? I like I can. You know, in the last few weeks, Hollywood has brought a doll to life and given her her own movie. I'm not sure if you've caught this. It's weird. And then, it wasn't long ago that Snow White was in the news. There's a new movie coming out. I'll be honest, I'm not a Snow White fan. I can't trust a lady that shacks up with 7 dudes in the woods. I just can't. No matter how tall they are, I just can't trust it. Not to mention that she's always happy while she's cleaning. Come on, seriously? It's just weird. I think she's on crack. But anyway, I think it's weird. You know another kid's story that I don't understand? Maybe you disagree with me. That's fine. The Little Engine That Could. I'm not a fan of The Little Engine That Could. Some of you might push back and go, but Paul, that's such a positive story. No, it's not. He's always going around saying, I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. That's not positive. What do you mean you think you can? Paul said, I can. do all things. I can. Paul says it's not about our physical condition. It's not about our physical situation as it is about our mindset. Paul didn't say, I sure hope I can. I think I can. Paul said, I'm sure going to give it, the old college try. I'm going to sure, maybe I will. Paul didn't say those things. Paul said, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, who strengthens me. Yet one of the things that you and I, that Christians are known for, is saying things like, I can't handle this pressure. Christians are known for saying things like, I can't handle this anxiety. I can't deal with this situation. I can't do it anymore. But I wonder what would happen if we change the I can't to the I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Now, I realize that this is beginning to sound like a TED Talk, and I don't mean for it to. Listen, I'm not going all new age here either. Some of you are like, he's going to start doing yoga. I'm not going to start doing yoga. If I get down and start doing yoga, I'm not going to get back up. That's not what I'm talking about. Jesus was here long before yoga was here, y'all. And Jesus cares about our mindset. He cares about it all. He says in this verse, he cares in Mark 12:30, where we've set up camp in this series. He says, I care about your heart. I care about your soul. I care about your mind. I care about your strength. Last week, you and I learned that Romans 12 says that we are called to renew our minds. In 2 Corinthians chapter 10, the Bible tells us to take every thought captive. So God encourages you and I to start with a mindset. It's important. It's not new age. It's important. It's how you and I can step from pain into our process in the middle of our crisis. It's not I think I can. It's not I hope I can. It's not maybe I can. But it's in Christ I can. It's a fact. So let's break down this verse a little bit more. I can do. I can do. I explained last week that when it comes to date night for Tennille and I, how it usually includes me choosing where we go, what we do, where we eat. And when she uses the phrase, it doesn't matter, I said that it really does matter. Men, you know this. Like when they say it doesn't matter, it matters. And so all week, I've got to be honest with you, all week I've kind of felt guilty because I think I kind of made it sound like that I figured all that out pretty quick and easy. But in actuality, I had to learn the hard way. I'm just being honest with you today. I had to learn that the hard way. Like the time that I got hangry. Anybody get hangry in here? Be honest, you're in church. You can't lie. They're coming up. Yeah, it's me. I get hangry. I remember one time I was hangry. We were driving, and I asked my wife, I said, are you hungry? And she said, yeah, I could eat, which means, I don't know what that means. And so I said, well, I'm hungry. I didn't tell her I was hangry, but I was hungry. And I looked at her, I said, what do you want to eat? And she said, it doesn't matter. And y'all, when she said that, I was hangry. So I'm like, if you don't tell me where you want to eat, I will park this car in the middle of this freeway. I don't care. I will stop and shove it in park. And she looked at me and she said, I bet you won't. Y'all, I can't even explain what happened inside of me. And I stopped the car. I had to. She bet me that I couldn't. It's a rite of passage, man. I learned a lot that day. When you hear people say that's the day that changed everything, that was the day that changed everything. Like, from that day on, I just started making the call. I was like, I can do this. I can do this. Paul said in this verse when he's giving it to us today, he says, I can do, which means he's saying there's something I can do. There's a choice that I can make. Paul didn't say that he was going to pray about it. Paul didn't say he was going to think about it. He said, I can do. James. You know James in the Bible? James said, don't just read it, don't just listen to it. He said, do it. Put what you read, put what you listen to, put what you believe into action. Have you ever heard the phrase, let go and let God? Right? We throw that around. That's on t-shirts too. Let go and let God. I'm like, what does that even mean? Let go and let God. Like, what if you and I drove like that? Let go and let God. By the way, let me just remind you that Jesus take the wheel is not meant to be literal, y'all. Okay? Let go and let God. Officer's like, what, were you texting and driving? No, officer, I was letting go and letting God. That officer would be like, well then, I guess you can let go and let God pay your ticket because your car is in somebody's yard, bro, you know? I think for some of us, though, when it comes to let go and let God, I think the reason we say things like that, let go and let God, is so that we don't have to take a step of faith. Paul said, oh, I can take a step of faith. Paul said, I'm in prison. What else am I going to do? I'm going to take a step of faith. I can do. Think about David. You ever think about David? David believed in God. David prayed to God. David knew that he could beat Goliath and defeat Goliath. David knew that he could take down a giant, but David still had to do something, didn't he? He still had to walk down to the riverbank. David still had to reach down and pick up 5 rocks. David still had to sling one at the giant. David didn't pray the Goliath away, did he? No, at the end of the day, the giant fell because David did something. David didn't go to the bookstore and buy a book called How to Defeat Giants. David, there were things that David knew he couldn't do. David, we can read the story. David knew that he couldn't wear another man's armor. He tried it. David knew that he couldn't be something that he wasn't. He was a little boy, and he knew that. But what he could do, what David could do, was take a step of faith. And Paul knew this too. Paul knew what he could do. Paul, in this verse, says, I can do all things through Christ. He said, I can't change my situation. Paul can't, rig up some hanger contraption like we see on, the Andy Griffith show or something and reach for the jailer's keys. Paul said, he can't tunnel through the prison like Shawshank Redemption or something. But he said, you know what I can do? I can pray. Paul said, I can write. Paul said, I can worship, and he's done it before when he was in prison. He said, I can choose to believe that I can do all things through Jesus who strengthens me. Which leads to the next part of this verse. I can do all things through Christ. Paul knew that. I can do all things through Christ. A while back, my wife and I, we got to go see the show at Sight and Sound Theater. If you've never been, it is amazing. It's like, stories of the Bible that come to life. It's powerful. And when we got there that night, we were going to see the show, and we got there and we found our seats. Right before we sat down, there was this woman standing right in front of us, and she goes, well, hey, how are y'all been? And I was like, we've been great. She's like, is the family good? Man, you both look so good. You're doing so well. Look like you're doing well. You're doing well. And we're like, yeah. And she's like, well, tell everybody I said hello. And then she turned around and sat down. I looked at Tennille and I said, do you know her? She said, no, I was hoping you knew her. I said, I don't know her. I've never met her in my life. She said, I've never met her either. Later on, it was funny, but she turns around and her husband goes, hey, babe, you were talking to them. Can you introduce me? And she looks at us a little closer and she goes, I don't know them. And he said, well, I wondered, and so I introduced myself to her. I said, I'm sorry that you thought. See, she thought she knew us. She thought we were somebody that we weren't. And in the same way, I think our problem as Christians, our problem is in our problem, we don't recognize who Jesus is and what he can do. But have you seen his resume? have you seen what Jesus is capable of? Like that whole virgin birth thing. Have you read that story? Have you the whole resurrection from the dead thing? Like, he can do things that are literally impossible, but impossible comes easy for God. God makes everything possible. Think about the first miracle of Jesus. The whole turning water into wine thing. Water, just water. Ordinary, normal water. Nothing special. But when Jesus gets involved, he takes ordinary and he makes it extraordinary. That's Jesus. And today, maybe you walked into this room and you walked into this church, and maybe today you're kind of feeling normal. Maybe today you feel ordinary, but Jesus says, no. When I'm involved, nothing is ordinary. With Jesus, you can do all things. Not because of me, not because of you, but through Christ, you can do all things. In the book of John, chapter 5, there's this guy who was sitting by a pool. The Bible says that he sat there for 38 years waiting to be healed. What miracle have you been waiting on? This guy waited for 38 years, waiting. Think about our society. We want to speak to the manager after waiting for 38 minutes. And this guy waited for 38 years for his miracle. The Bible says that they would wait by this pool. And it's a belief that archaeologists and scholars say that there was a spring that would feed this pool. And every time the spring would come in, the water would ripple and the water would make a circular effect. And when they would see that, they believed that an angel was stirring the water with their finger. Therefore, they would be healed. So people would camp out at this pool, and this guy had waited by this pool for his turn to get into the water and to be healed. He was paralyzed, and Jesus walks up to this man and he says, "Do you want to be healed?" Now, I've read that story so many times, and as I read that story, I'm like, well, that's kind of obvious, isn't it, Jesus? He's waited there for 38 years, and you look at him and say, "Do you want to be healed?" What do you mean, do you want to be healed? But then I realize, and I look around our society, and I can believe that some people don't want to be healed. Why? Because they get way more attention staying a victim. In our society, if you want to identify as depressed, then you will always be depressed. If you want to identify as being depressed, then you will stay depressed. If you want to, in our society, if you want to identify as an addict, then you will always be an addict and you will stay an addict. But when you begin to understand what Christ can do, what Jesus is capable of, you will begin to see that I can do all things through Christ. And that's what happened to that man by the pool. The story goes on, says he met Jesus. When he met Jesus, he was no longer ordinary. He saw and he experienced the extraordinary that Jesus was and that Jesus brought to him. And because of Jesus, that man picked up his mat and walked away after 30 years of waiting. Then there's the resurrection of Jesus. Jesus told his closest friends, he says, "I'm going to be killed, and then on the third day, I'm going to rise from the dead." For us, listen, y'all, if anybody tells you that hey, just want to let you know that I'm going to be killed, and when you go to the funeral, I'm going to pop up out of that thing, and I'm going to rise from the dead. If they tell you that, run, because they're crazy. But see, Jesus told his closest friends that he would rise on the third day, and he actually did it because he's Jesus. That Jesus, the virgin birth Jesus, the Jesus that turned water into wine, that Jesus, the Jesus who healed the crippled man by the pool, that Jesus, the Jesus who predicted his death and his resurrection, that Jesus, if you believe in him and he lives inside of you, that means that nothing is impossible. Are you with me today, church? Nothing is impossible. I'm not saying it's not hard. I'm not saying that the pain is not real. I'm not saying that it's not a struggle every day of your life. I'm just saying it's possible. I can do all things through Christ. I can do all things through Christ. That thing that you go around telling yourself you can't handle, you actually can handle. It might be difficult, but you can do it. Because Jesus said, not just some things, all things. By myself? No, not by myself, through Christ. And then the last part of this verse, who strengthens me? Who strengthens me? The band's going to come out. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Jesus in us gives us the strength that we need to walk through the fire. Jesus in us gives us the strength that we need. Do you see how amazing that is? The same Holy Spirit that brought Jesus back from the dead lives inside of you and I when we believe in Him. Do you see the miracle of that? He has the power to silence all of the voices in our lives, including our own. He has the power to silence all of the doubters in your life, including you who are doubting your own life. He gives you strength. One Bible version says that He is our strength. Because when He is our strength, then nothing else matters. That means that you and I, we're not alone. Because He is our strength. And because He is our strength, He is with us. Would you stand today? Pray with me in this place, all over this place. God, would you be our strength? God, would you remind us that it is not by our power, but it is by your power. God, be the strength in our lives. Be everything that we need. You are our strength. We go to you today. We worship you today because you are all powerful, Jesus.